Welcome everybody to another episode of Young Bible Scholars. Today we continue our series from Cradle to the Cross and beyond. Although what I want to do is jump over to episode 11 because next weekend is a very special weekend. It's the weekend of Easter. And last weekend at church I taught the elementary age kids about the cross. So I would like to jump to this episode and talk about the cross today. But before we do so, I would like to ask a question. Think about this. Have you ever had to make a really hard choice knowing that it was the right choice to make? When I was in middle school, I remember being bullied quite a bit, mostly because my parents taught me that if people bully you or call you names, you shouldn't fight back, you turn the other cheek. And that was really difficult for me, but it was for a good cause. It was the right thing to do. And it turned out well for me. I ended up having some really good friends that ended up being friends with me because of who I was and what I had done, and they recognized something in me that was special. So today, I want to dive in to the book of Luke, where we talk about Jesus being crucified. And the reason why he just stayed there and followed through with that whole thing. Because as we know, Jesus is God and he can do anything, right? So let's dive into the passage. I'll be reading in Luke 23, starting in verse 32. Two others, both criminals, were led to be executed with him. They came to a place called the Skull. They nailed him to the cross. And the criminals were also crucified, one on his right, one on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." And the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. The crowd watched, and the leaders scoffed. "He saved others," they said. "Let him save himself, if he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers mocked him too. By offering him a drink of sour wine, they called him out. "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." A sign was fastened above him with these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed. "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us too while you're at it." But the other criminal protested. "Don't you fear God? Even when you have been sentenced to die, we deserve to die for our crimes. But this man hasn't done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise." So let's dig into this a little bit. Why do you think the soldiers gambled for Jesus's clothes, for his robe? I mean, after all, it was just a plain robe of linen made out of one piece of cloth. It was probably covered in sweat and blood. It wasn't really nice, right? So why would they do that? And why were all these people around there mocking Jesus, making fun of him, telling him to save himself? Well, I asked this question to our elementary age kid last week at church, and a fifth grader didn't miss a beat. He answered, "It's because it was prophesied." And he's totally right. It was prophesied. In Psalm 22, both of these events were actually foretold that it would happen exactly that way. And so it had to happen that way. So let's dive into those two passages and we'll see what it says. Psalm 22, verse 7 and 8 say this, "Everyone who sees me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, 'Is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him.'" Does that sound familiar? That's right. Psalm 22, verse 16 and 18. "My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. My enemies stare at me and gloat." They divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing. Again, does that sound familiar? They throw dice for my clothing. Even there, the passage talks about they've pierced my hand and feet. I mean, we know who the author is talking about here in the book of Psalms, hundreds of years before Jesus was crucified on the cross, right? So these specific events had to happen because they were prophesying. Now, one would wonder, could Jesus have saved himself? Of course he could have saved himself. If Jesus is God, he could do anything. He could have saved himself. So why didn't he do it? Jesus didn't do it because he had his reasons. He was there by choice. He had chosen to go through with this event. In fact, he even told his disciples on his way to Jerusalem that this was going to happen. Early on in the book of Luke, in chapter 18, he talks to his disciples and he says, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man," that's him, "will be fulfilled. He will be delivered over to the Gentiles," that was the Romans, right? "And they will mock him, insult him, and spit on him. They will flog him and kill him. And on the third day, he will rise again." So here in this passage, Jesus is clearly telling his disciples, this is going to happen. I'm choosing to do this for a reason. Now, what would you say is the difference between the two criminals? Now, the criminal on the right was just like the other people. He scoffed at Jesus. He made fun of him and said, "Hey, while you're at it, save me and save yourself," right? So he was just like the people around him. But the criminal on the left, he did not. He believed in who Jesus was. He believed Jesus was the Messiah, the chosen one. And that's why he asked Jesus to remember him when he entered into his kingdom. And it was his faith in Jesus that saved him. And that's why Jesus told him, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Wow, that's really cool. Jesus came and died on the cross, not because he was a bad person or because he had done something wrong. He came and died on the cross because he had a reason. He chose to do that. He chose to take on the sins of the entire world, past, present, and future, so that we who choose to believe in him, just like the criminal who was on the left, can be forgiven of all their sins, past, present, and future, and inherit eternal life. So Jesus came and died on the cross to give hope to the hopeless, because without him, we would still be living in our sin. So let's talk about a couple of life applications. Application number 1, I want you to be like the criminal on Jesus's right. Believe in who Jesus is and what he did for you on the cross, just like the criminal did. Have faith that Jesus is the Messiah, that he can rescue you from your own sins, past, present, and future. And he will do that for you, and you can be with him in paradise for eternity. Life application number 2, follow in Jesus' steps. There will be time where following Jesus is not easy. But know this, Jesus has been there before you, and he can help you go through these difficult moments. And if you stick to it and you honor Jesus and you follow in his steps, he will honor you as you follow him. So that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for joining me as usual. If you really like this, please press the like button. Also, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and press that little bell to get notifications of new episodes that are coming. And that's it. That's all I have. Next week, we will talk about the resurrection, because next week is Easter Sunday, and I really want to talk about the resurrection and what it means for us. Thank you all. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day.